I'll go ahead and start off by just stating that we don't have any concrete update as of right now. We're still planning on the game going forward as planned, but no concrete update as of yet. We'll go ahead and jump into questions. We'll start with Grant Ramey and then Jimmy Himes.
Des, I know you guys like routine, but is there a benefit to having a little bit more practice time this week opposed to the standard midweek game, weekend game setup?
Well, we'll see on Saturday. I mean, you don't never know if it's benefiting you until you actually play the game. Certainly the routine has been play 2 games a week, and our guys have gotten used to it. We had a great practice, on Wednesday, on Tuesday, the day of the game. So I do feel like our guys feel like they're in a routine because of how hard they played on Tuesday.
Coach, what are your thoughts on Vanderbilt? What impresses you about that team?
Well, the one thing that stands out when you're watching video on Vanderbilt is the volume of sets that they're able to run and able to run effectively. Typically, either you're writing stuff up after timeout or whatever to run 25 sets in a game and have the set look like you practiced it, for several weeks is really hard to do at this level, especially. And they do a pretty good job of it. They execute. They have a lot of different things that are tricky to guard. So just watching their offensive flow, I've been really impressed with how cerebral their players must be to recognize what they're doing and be able to do it at a high level, and how effective what they do is in order to get shots for their top 2 players.
Also, would you talk a little bit about the progress you've seen from the start of the season to now in Keon Johnson and Jaden Springer?
Well, like any freshman, there's going to be progress because the reality is, especially in a year where there's COVID, like it was over the summer and our guys, weren't out there full time, they just don't know anything, coming in at the college level. They know high school basketball, they know AAU basketball, but they don't know Tennessee. So the time it's taken to get used to how hard we play, our culture of work ethic, because now when your body's beat up and you're tired and yet the veterans are back in the gym and getting up more shots and get more lifts in, and you're not, you feel a little bit, left behind. So I think just the routine of college basketball in general has, kind of helped those guys along the way. And what you're seeing is their minds, their bodies are getting used to it, and it's starting to show itself on the court with their productivity as far as how well they're playing. And I'm just excited because you know what? If they're playing as well as they're playing right now, just imagine how good those guys are going to look a week or 2 or a month from now, as far as the level of feel and IQ based on what we're trying to get accomplished on the court.
Mike Wilson and Rob Lewis.
Yeah, Des, did you guys consider trying to find a midweek game potentially this week after Vanderbilt got postponed? And how did the players kind of respond to, going to Nashville, coming back, and then just having practices this week instead of a game?
Hey, great question. I was joking to my family when I got back, a couple of days ago. So one, I've not had any conversations about any other game midweek besides Vanderbilt with anybody on our staff. And as far as our players, it was funny. So, we're sitting in, film, and, it's my scout. So I'm talking about personnel. And I had just started talking about Scottie Pippen. And it was kind of like, Scottie Pippen, 6'2" guard, his weight. And then Coach just bursts in the room. He says, game is off, not going to play. And honestly, my gut was, he's joking. I'm like, I'm the brunt of his joke. So I was kind of like, oh man, Coach has got me. And then I realized within, 10 seconds, he was dead serious. And our players were a little bit devastated because they, at that point, you're doing a scouting report, they're prepared to play, and they've been through this before. Last year, our guys were on the court ready to play and the game got canceled. So I felt like, they felt the frustration again of another, postponed game coming their way. So we had to really talk about, hey guys, this is going to happen. Right now we're fighting through adversity with this COVID year. Be happy we're playing. trust the process, and we'll get back at it again here in a few days.
Des, what are your thoughts, or I guess, what are Rick's thoughts on sprinkling in a little zone defense every once in a while? Do you guys work on that at all in practice? I mean, I know Coach kind of hates it, but I mean, is that up your sleeve at all?
Well, I don't think Coach hates zone at all. I think Coach, if you follow Coach's career, way back years ago, he'll always sprinkle zone in when necessary. But I do believe this. I believe that Coach feels like our standard at Tennessee has always been we're the hardest playing team in the country. And it's hard to have zone represent that because you're kind of stationary, you're standing in the same spots. So he's reluctant a lot of times to go zone. We have a zone, we do practice zone, but I think Coach loves the warrior mentality of, our guys are going to compete, we're going to fight and get through screens and guard the ball hard and sometimes play full court and half court. So zone's in our program, but you haven't seen it yet. So just be patient, and at some point in time down the stretch, we'll show you a little bit of zone probably, at some point, maybe in March.
Ben McKee and Joe Rexroad.
Coach, the matchup between Scottie Pippen and Keon and Jaden, and I realize that Josiah and Santi and other guys will be involved there. But just those young players going at it, what's kind of been y'all's message to the types of challenges that Scottie can present you guys?
Well, I will say to you, we really haven't talked much about the matchup between Scottie and our guys. It's been more about us, Tennessee, us getting better. Every time we play a game and we walk off the court victorious or not victorious, we always talk about the Tennessee standard. And no matter who we're playing, whether it be, upstate or App State or Vandy, our whole process is they're the next team that we have to play, but it's about us improving and getting better. Just so happens that they have a player in Scottie Pippen Jr. who has a 35% usage rate, which is second in the country, who takes 34% of their shots on their team. So clearly, someone is going to have to step up and take on that challenge, or maybe a collective, amount of people have to do it. 3 or 4 guys have to step up and do it. But it's been more about us and getting better and, get better on offense, taking care of the ball better. I feel like our defense is on point. It's more about our offense, taking the right shots, taking care of the basketball, and just having that energy that we have, more so than it is about any matchup, in my opinion.
Desmond, I wanted to ask you about Santiago. How different is he as a player this year? Where has he improved?
Well, first of all, physically, when he came back in the fall, he just looked like he had been eating right, and even during COVID, getting in the gym and working. His body looked more chiseled and more prepared for SEC play than it did when he got here a year ago. And anytime you come back in year 2, your understanding of the offense and defense is just at a higher level, so he was comfortable. Now, I do think the difference between this year's team and last year's team is depth. Last year, we had to play him 30-plus minutes every night. This year, it's a stretch to say any of our players have to be out there longer than 28 minutes. So, that adjustment, having someone come off the bench that's pretty capable, over your shoulder, so to speak, and knowing that there's another guy that could, play your position. All these guys have had to adjust to that. But we talk about our, that unit of guards having a chance to be the best, 5 or 6 guards, including Ticket, in the country, and rooting for each other and never getting to a point where it's about me, always wanting our team to do well. And I think Santiago has been tremendous in taking part of that. And certainly the one thing that we've always needed from Santi is his ability to make shots. And I think last game, he did a great job of getting back to the guy that we've seen, do that, many games last season.
Yeah, I was going to ask that real fast. How challenging is it when, obviously he's running the team a lot of the times when he's out there, but a guy you definitely want to get those shots up. Is that a challenge for a player to sort of have to try to balance those roles?
I think it's a challenge when your team changes. Our personnel has changed from last year. We've added, 3 impact players, and Victor Bailey and our 2 freshmen, Keon and Jaden. So the team isn't the same exact group of guys from last year. We're running different sets. So trying to figure out exactly where you're going to get your shots at within the offense, it does take some time. I think, to his credit, he's a very patient young man. He has a super high basketball IQ, and he's all about winning. So what you're seeing is a natural growth that you want to have. You want to have teams, I think, like ours, that continuously get better. Not a team that comes out day one and we're world beaters, and then you just see us plateau, and then all of a sudden we're getting worse down the stretch.
Rob Lewis, Jimmy Himes.
Des, Coach Barnes has talked a lot, I guess, after the last 2 or 3 games about still figuring out rotations. And I don't think, EJ and Olivier's minutes have been up and down. Where are you guys with that? Is that unusual this late in the season to still be figuring it past those top 7 guys to figure out, what you're doing beyond them?
Well, again, I don't think anything is usual, during the season with what we're dealing with, pauses, and now you're back at it playing again with COVID. All of that has had a direct result in our rotation, because the reality is, if those freshmen had an opportunity over the summertime to train, be here earlier, and get in shape, and there were no pauses. Now our roster, our rotation has a chance to shape itself as early as June and July, as opposed to you shut down for a little bit. This guy gets COVID, he's out for 2 weeks, and now, he comes back and needs another month to figure it out. All of that has impacted what we're doing right now. And the one thing I love about Coach is he's fair. He's not going to just put a guy in the lineup, day one because of whatever star status he has. He's fair to those veteran guys who have earned it. And quite frankly, those guys earned it, early on. And these freshmen are just coming like world beaters. So the reality is, and I remember years ago telling Lamonte Turner this, because the year he made 6th man of the year, he was really down at times early on that he wasn't starting. And I said, Lamonte, we've got 6 starters. So if you look at it like that, and not so much about being one of our 5, you're ending the game for us, and you're playing close to 30 minutes a night. And the same can be said with those freshmen. So I think we've got, for the most part, we've got 7 starters on our roster, and all those guys shouldn't get caught up in who starts the game, but more about how they play when they're in there and getting wins.
Coach, do you like where the team is as far as rebounding?
Well, you can always get better rebounding, right? You can always shut teams out and grab every board there is. And you really do talk about, you strive for every possession. Can we win every single possession? And we're not there yet. And quite frankly, we're not the biggest team in the country. We have really good size in our backcourt, but our front line, Foki and Eve would be considered probably an undersized front line. So we talk about gang rebounding on defense, and that's when all 5 guys can come together and act as one and do their job blocking out and pursuing the basketball. And on offense, it's just having a pulse where the opposing team knows that we're coming. And then based on numbers, what happens is you end up having a fair share of those fall in your favor.
Also, how do you feel like y'all are running your half-court offense right now?
I'm sorry, say it again?
How do you feel like you're running your half-court offense? Do you like the execution you're getting in your half-court?
Well, we're getting better. We're improving. Do we like it? It depends on what time of the game you're asking me about. Certainly you strive to be perfect. And our game is an imperfect game. Like, what team in the world, you watch the world champions play, the Lakers, feel like they're executing at a 100% level every time they play? You strive for it, and you know that you're not going to get there. When a team can shoot 50% from the field and that be considered having a great shooting night, it shows you how imperfect this game is. So we're striving to get better. We're young. We got young guards. Our turnover ratio was way higher a month ago than what it is right now. I would venture to say that, in another month, it'll go down, and you'll see our assists go way up. So we're trending in the right direction.
Ben McKee and Rob Lewis.
Coach, now that Victor is 10 or so games into actually playing games at Tennessee, do you feel like he's found a level of comfort and kind of knocked off the rust? And if so, what is that next step for him in terms of contributing to the team?
I think he's doing his job at a high level. He's leading our team in scoring. And sometimes you have to have guys who all they do is rebound. Like, you want those guys to get better in other areas, but you say, I can pencil in 8 rebounds for this guy. Or a guy like Victor, who you can say, no matter what's going on offensively, if he's in the game long enough and he gets enough looks at the basket, the ball's going to go in the basket. I don't think there was any rust. When you're a veteran player and you're someone that's been in college, for more than a year or two, the expectation is, like any veteran pro, is that you understand the process of what it is to keep your mind and your body right. So, Victor's a guy that we knew would come in day one and find his niche, find his role. I think he has. Certainly there's some areas he has to get better at. Like I think sometimes guys that can score like he can score, that consumes you because nothing's more fun than watching the ball go in the basket. The next phase for him is becoming a much better defender and being someone that we can count on late in games to make those defensive reads and get those defensive stops.
Coach, what's the latest on Corey Walker? Coach Barnes said on Monday he was back, but he was way behind. Is there any chance that he could help this year? What do you think?
Well, the great thing about this game, and it's tremendous, my kids both play, I have two boys that play, and we talk about this routinely. And I love it because the reality is, when people want to come hire our guys after their careers are over with, you hope that it's all about the fact that they've been part of a team, they've learned a role, and they've dealt with adversity, right? So now you got a guy in your company that can help build, from the ground up because they've dealt with failure, and that's not going to shake him. Corey has dealt with a lot. Corey's, missed some time because of COVID. Corey's come in and had to change his body. He's still going through that process. He's been injured. I think he broke his toe several weeks ago. And the reality is he is at the bottom right now, on our depth chart, and he's got to work his way into the rotation. And that's on Corey. That's on him to see how many times, can Corey get in the gym and work on his jump shot? Can he get his weight where it needs to be, where now he's one of the fastest guys at that position. So I love that because in the past, we've had guys who've done that. Admiral Schofield was in that position before, and he attacked it. He found a way to become one of our best. So if Corey's the guy that we think he is, the guy that we recruited, and I do think he's that guy, he'll put the time in and he'll work his butt off, and you'll see improvement if you're at practice. And hopefully that leads to getting on the floor in games and helping us some in games. So we'll see. And the good thing about coaches is this. No matter where you are on the depth chart, if we're playing in a game and we're struggling, and he looks down that bench and he can see a Drew Pember or Corey Walker or whoever, Urosh or Olivier, that can give us a 5-minute window of success, of improvement. He has no fear in giving those guys a chance.
And you may not be able to answer this, but if the Vandy game, if they can't play, is there a chance you could schedule somebody else? Or, like I said, you may not be able to answer.
I've been talking to CAK and trying to get my son's coach to stand by. I figure that might be a guaranteed W. But honestly, my mindset has been Vandy. As a guy who's doing that scout, I really want to play the game because one year, you're trying to organize, I guess, your season based on your scouts. And I don't want to have to go 3 in a row down the road by having to cancel these games. And our players are thinking Vandy. They prepared for them. I'm sure Vandy's thinking Tennessee. They prepared for us. So knock on wood, we'll get a chance to go out there and do it here in a couple of days.
To build on that, Rob, the league has leeway within a 36-hour window to make adjustments in schedules. If it gets inside that 36-hour window, both teams would have to agree, but there is some flexibility that's been agreed upon at the league level. We'll go next to Mike Wilson.
Yeah, Des, obviously Saban Lee and Scottie Pippen Jr. have some different skill sets, but are there similarities in how Jerry Stackhouse is using those guys? Just both obviously high possession, high shot volume, assist guys.
You know what? I don't think so. Watching the video from last year, and I'll say this again, I'm not in their locker rooms. So I don't know what conversations they have or what they're talking about. But watching the video, I felt like there was a struggle with Saban. Anytime you come in and take over a program as a head coach, the one thing you're fighting day one is buy-in and culture. And a lot of times you feel more comfortable when you can bring in your own guy or guys, because during the recruiting process, you've discussed what your culture is going to be like, as opposed to try to resell a different coach to guys who've been there before. So I felt like the buy-in that Scottie Pippen Jr. has towards Stackhouse is different. They recruited Scottie. I'm sure, Scottie's dad and Stackhouse are probably good friends. There's a level of trust there that I didn't see with Saban, even though I think Saban's the better talent. Like Saban Lee is a problem. He's very, very talented. But that mental mindset, that being comfortable enough with your head coach at that position is so valuable. Even though Saban was a scouting report guy that we feared, and so was Scotty, I just think that Scotty's success, primarily their team is different, right? They have less veteran guys that can get the job done than maybe Saban had his first couple of years. And it's Scotty's team. Scotty, just does everything for him. And I'm sure that's not to Stackhouse's liking. I'm sure he would like to see other guys step up or get a veteran guy or two to take the load off of Scotty's hands.
Take one last call for questions. All right, Des, appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Coach.
Thank
Dad.
you.